This is the domain of Martins Vincent Ose, known globally across the internet as Very Dark Man, VDM, with a voice that cuts through the noise of a highly polarized online ecosystem. VDM stands as the undisputed champion of a new breed of raw, digital-first populist commentary in Nigeria. He does not speak in the polished diplomatic cadences of traditional human rights lawyers or the theoretical prose of political science professors. He speaks the language of the streets, weaponized through the algorithm of short-form video. But today, the focus of his digital megaphone is not a corrupt skincare brand, a celebrity dispute, or a local internet scam. Today, VDM's lenses is trained on a veteran of a completely different era of resistance, Omoleye Sowore. When Very Dark Man releases a video calling on the youth of Nigeria to show up in massive numbers, but crucially, with absolute peace and tragic decorum, at Omoleye's latest bail hearing, a profound cultural tectonic shift occurs. It represents the explicit intersection of two entirely different generations of Nigerian defiance. The old guard, represented by Sowore, tempered by military cells, tear gas, physical exile, and the foundational battles of the early 1990s pro-democracy movement. The new guard, represented by VDM, forged in the fires of social media algorithms, viral distribution mechanics, and the hyper-immediate reality of the post-EndSARS digital generation. This is not merely a breakdown of a single court appearance or a routine bail application. This is a comprehensive, multi-layered look into the political machinery of modern Nigeria. To understand why the state views Omoleye Sowore as a permanent existential threat, and why modern commentators like Very Dark Man recognize the structural importance of his legal battles, one must completely discard the idea that Sowore is a conventional politician. Sowore is a systemic disruptor whose operational blueprint was designed decades before the invention of the smartphone. Sowore's journey did not begin with the formation of the African Action Congress (AAC) or the declaration of the Revolution Now movement. It began in the overcrowded, volatile lecture halls and hostels of the University of Lagos, UNILAG. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Nigerian universities were not just centers of academic learning. They were the frontline battlegrounds against military despotism. Under the repressive regimes of General Ibrahim Babangida and late General Sani Abacha, student unionism was treated by the state as an act of treason. During his tenure as SUG president, Sowore redefined the parameters of student activism. When the Babangida administration attempted to enforce conditional loans from the World Bank that would structurally dismantle affordable public education, Sowore did not write letters of appeal. He shut down the campus. He mastered the art of logistical deployment, how to move thousands of students safely through a city heavily policed by live ammunition military checkpoints. This era was defined by raw physical courage. Sowore was arrested, beaten, and tortured multiple times by the state security apparatus. In one of the most infamous chapters of his early life, he was injected with an unknown chemical substance by campus cultists widely believed to be acting as proxy assassins for the military government. He survived, but the experience left him with an ironclad psychological immunity to intimidation. When modern DSS operatives flash weapons in his face, they are dealing with a man who looked Abacha's execution squads in the eye and refused to blink. Following the formal transition to civilian rule in 1999, Sowore quickly realized that while the military uniforms had been traded for civilian agbadas, the underlying architecture of state corruption remained completely intact. The mainstream Nigerian media landscape of the early 2000s was heavily compromised, vulnerable to state closure, editorial bribery, popularly known as brown envelope journalism, and corporate censorship. In 2006, operating from a tiny room in New York City after seeking political asylum, Sowore launched Sahara Reporters. Sahara Reporters was an absolute revolution in African media. It was the precursor to WikiLeaks on the African continent. By utilizing decentralized web hosting based in United States, Sowore created a platform that was completely immune to the threats of the Nigerian Ministry of Information or local police raids. For the first time in Nigerian history, top secret memos from the presidential villa, Aso Rock, bank statements of corrupt governance, and flight manifests of politicians flying private jets with state funds were published in raw, unedited formats for the public to see. Sahara reporters did not just report the news. It broke the psychological monopoly of fear held by the Nigerian ruling elites. It exposed the hidden wealth of political heavyweights across all the major parties, proving that Sowore's allegiance was not to a specific political faction, but to a total, uncompromising transparency. This media empire turned him into a permanent target for every intelligence agency in Nigeria. The inflection point that transformed Sowore from an investigative media mogul into an active existential threat to the modern state occurred in 2019, after contesting for the presidential election under the banner of the African Action Congress (AAC). Sowore looked at the structural irregularities of the electoral system and concluded that true liberation for the Nigerian masses could not be achieved solely through a broken ballot box controlled by a compromised umpire. He launched #RevolutionNow. The word revolution sent shockwaves through the corridors of power in Abuja to a government dealing with deep-seated insecurity, systemic economic decay, and mounting public anger. The term was interpreted not as a call for peaceful democratic renewal, but as an explicit attempt to overthrow the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. At precisely 1:25 a.m. on August 3rd, 2019, an elite team of heavily armed black-clad operatives from the Department of State Services (DSS) surrounded a hotel apartment in Lagos where Sowore was staying. The security footage of that raid plays like an action movie. Flashlights cutting through the dark, the heavy thud of tactical boots against concrete, the loud demands for entry, and Sowore's calm, unbended voice demanding to see a valid warrant before his phone was forcibly seized. Sowore was instantly flown via a chartered flight to the DSS headquarters in Abuja, the infamous Yellow House. He was charged with treasonable felony, cyber-stalking the president, and money laundering. The state's legal argument was breathtakingly fragile. They claimed that by planning a nationwide protest using the word revolution, Sowore was actively coordinating with foreign entities to bring down the sovereign government of Nigeria. What followed remains one of the darkest, most visually shocking chapters in the history of modern Nigerian judiciary. After spending over 120 days in illegal detention despite meeting stringent bail conditions set by Federal High Court Judge Ifeoma Ojukwu, the court issued an ultimatum demanding his immediate release. The DSS complied on the evening of December 5, but the freedom lasted less than 12 hours. On the morning of December 6, 2019, while Sowore and his legal team, led by senior human rights activist Femi Falana San, were inside the courtroom for a routine procedural hearing, over a dozen armed DSS operatives stormed the judicial chamber. The imagery was catastrophic for Nigeria's international democratic profile. Armed men, task-oriented and aggressive, invading a federal court session to abduct a citizen who had been granted bail by that very court. Sowore was dragged out of the building, pinned inside a waiting vehicle, and driven back into detention. This event proved that the executive arm of the government was willing to physically violate the sanctity of the judiciary to keep Sowore isolated from the public. To understand why Very Dark Man is mobilizing his followers right now, we must look at the immediate legal and political landscape surrounding Sowore. This is not ancient history from 2019. This is a highly volatile, unfolding situation involving ongoing state maneuvers designed to permanently restrict his movement, silence his media platforms, and penalize his ongoing resistance. While the state eventually dropped the core treason charges after years of international embarrassment and intense pressure from global human rights organizations, they replaced them with a highly sophisticated strategy of judicial attrition. Instead of a single high-profile trial, Sowore is currently subjected to a complex web of decentralized legal charges across multiple jurisdictions. The judicial attrition strategy, federal level, cyberstalking, and disrupting state security. State level, unlawful assembly and inciting public defiance. Civil level, multi-billion naira politician libel suits. This strategy is intentionally designed to exhaust an activist's financial resources, consume their time, and keep them under restrictive bail conditions that prevent them from traveling outside the country or organizing mass public movements. Sowore's recent bail hearings are not minor legal technicalities. They are high-stakes survival battles where the state actively seeks to revoke his freedom and return him to maximum security detention under new, ambiguous charges related to public order disruption. The timing of Sowore's recent legal pressure is deeply tied to the broader socio-economic reality of Nigeria. The country is currently experiencing its most severe economic crisis in a generation. Inflation has soared to historic heights. The removal of the fuel subsidy has tripled transport costs. The floating of the naira has degraded purchasing power. The state is acutely aware that the public mood is highly explosive. In this hyper-volatile environment, a veteran organizer like Sowore, who possesses the exact logistical knowledge required to turn public anger into structured nationwide disobedience, is viewed by state strategists as a match inside a powder keg. The renewed urgency to drag him by federal courts on restrictive bail terms is a preventive countermeasure to ensure he cannot lead, advise, or give structural shape to the mounting public anger over economic hardship. When Martins Vincent Ose, very dark man, uploaded his video addressing Sowore's upcoming bail hearing, many traditional political analysts were caught completely off guard. Why would a content creator known for lifestyle commentary, consumer advocacy, and hyperlocal drama suddenly throw his weight behind a seasoned pro-democracy revolutionary? To understand this, we must examine the operational psychology of Very Dark Man. Very Dark Man operates with a specific type of raw credibility that traditional political leaders can no longer command. In a society where the public has been deeply betrayed by polished politicians, corporate figures, and compromised media houses, VDM's lack of polish is his greatest structural asset. He shoots his videos in basic settings, often shirtless or in simple clothing, stripping away all corporate artifice. His content thrives on a single foundational premise: uncompromising, aggressive equity. Whether he is calling out a multi-million naira cosmetic brand for operating without NAFDAC registration or demanding accountability for a victim of police brutality, his audience knows that VDM does not filter his message for polite society. He has built an army of millions of young Nigerians who view him not as an elite commentator, but as a fearless street-level investigator who says exactly what they are thinking, but are too terrified to voice out publicly. In his viral video focusing on Sowore, VDM directly addresses his core constituency, the disenfranchised, highly connected youth of Nigeria. His message is highly strategic, carefully balanced to avoid giving the state security apparatus any legal excuse to shut down his platforms or arrest him for incitement. This call to action is brilliant in its simplicity and highly effective in its legal defense. By explicitly demanding peaceful support and decorum, VDM completely dismantles the state's primary legal weapon, the accusation of inciting a riot or attempting a violent disruption of judicial proceedings. He introduces the concept of passive optical pressure, flooding a space with so many silent, observant citizens that the judge, the prosecutors, and the hidden state directors realize that any extrajudicial maneuver will be instantly witnessed, documented, and distributed to millions of people globally within minutes. Why is the emphasis on absolute peace so vital in this specific moment? Why did VDM spend a significant portion of his broadcast warning his followers against aggressive behaviors, chants, or confrontations with court security? To understand this tactical choice, we must analyze the state counter-protest playbook that has been used by consecutive Nigerian administrations over 3 decades. The state counter-protest playbook: peaceful assembly launched, infiltration by paid talks, mass media blackout, state retaliation via live ammo or gas. Historically, when citizens gather peacefully to support a political prisoner or protest a state policy in Nigeria, the state rarely engages them on the intellectual merits of their arguments. Instead, the security apparatus or political actors utilize proxy agents, popularly known as area boys or paid agitators, to infiltrate the crowd. These infiltrators are instructed to stir up trouble. They throw stones at police vehicles. They smash store windows or attempt to breach court gates. They brandish crude weapons in front of press cameras. The moment this controlled chaos is triggered, the waiting police units or military detachments deploy maximum force. They fire tear gas canisters directly into the crowd, use water cannons, and execute mass indiscriminate arrest of genuine peaceful citizens. That night, state television broadcast footage of the violence, framing the entire movement as a dangerous collection of criminals, hoodlums, and anarchists who threatened national security. The true focus of the protest, the illegal detention of an activist or an unfair bail condition, is completely erased from the national news cycle. By issuing a strict mandate for peaceful decorum, Very Dark Man and Sowore's strategic advisors are implementing a sophisticated defense system, the infiltrator isolation effect. If thousands of people stand in quiet, orderly lines, dressed in standard civilian attire, any paid agitator who attempts to start a fight or throw a projectile stands out immediately. They are visually isolated, easily filmed by hundreds of phones, and cannot blend into a disciplined crowd. The judicial shield. Judges are highly sensitive to the atmosphere within and around their chambers. If a courtroom is surrounded by a chaotic, chanting crowd, a judge can legally justify adjourning the case indefinitely or holding the proceedings in a closed camera session, citing a direct threat to personal and judicial safety. If the crowd is flawlessly orderly, the judge is stripped of this excuse and is forced to conduct the hearing in the full view of the public. International public relations leverage. High-profile trials in Nigeria are closely monitored by foreign embassies, the US, UK, and European Union human rights attaches, and global watchdogs like Amnesty International. When these entities observe a disciplined, peaceful population being met with heavy-handed state military deployment, it significantly escalates the diplomatic cost of the Nigerian government, forcing them to handle the defendant with strict adherence to constitutional law. To completely comprehend what is at stake during a bail hearing for an activist of Sowore's stature, we must take a realistic look into the infrastructure of the agency that holds him, the Department of State Services, DSS, headquartered in the asymmetric, highly secure complex known as the Yellow House in the Aso Rock district of Abuja. The DSS operates in Nigeria's premier domestic intelligence agency. It is a world shrouded in total secrecy, designed specifically to break the psychological resolve of those who challenge the state. When an activist is remanded into DSS custody rather than a standard Nigerian correctional service prison, they are entering a system of total control, unlike regular prisons where inmates can interact with a broader community, access books, or receive structured visits from family members. DSS detention is built on the concept of total isolation. The sensory environment. Cells are frequently subterranean or located deep within internal corridors where natural sunlight is completely eliminated. Lights are either kept on continuously for 24 hours to disrupt the circadian rhythm and cause sleep deprivation, or cells are left in total absolute darkness. The information blackout. Detainees are completely cut off from the outside world. No newspapers, no television, no radio, and absolutely no access to mobile devices or internet connectivity. For months, an activist may have zero knowledge of whether the public is still protesting their arrest or if their name had been completely forgotten by the media. The legal interdiction. Visits from legal counsels are heavily restricted. Lawyers are often forced to wait for hours in reception rooms, only to be granted a brief 10-minute interview conducted in the direct presence of an armed intelligence officer who documents every word spoken. Sowore has frequently documented the psychological games played by interrogators during his multiple periods of detention. Operatives are trained in advanced interrogation techniques, utilizing rotating shifts of questioning designed to exhaust the target. They alternate between aggressive threats of life imprisonment or execution and friendly offers of state appointments, financial compensation, and immediate freedom if the activist agrees to sign a code of conduct or publicly dismantle their movement. The entire apparatus is built to answer one fundamental question: what is your breaking point? When an activist like Sowore emerges from months in this environment with a spirit unbroken, singing songs of resistance the moment he enters a courtroom, it represents a catastrophic failure for the intelligence community's psychological profiling system. This resilience is precisely why the youth view him as a legendary figure, and why VDM's call to protect that unyielding spirit strikes such a deep chord across the country. We are currently witnessing a fascinating historical convergence. The alignment of Omoleye Sowore and Very Dark Man represents a critical marriage of convenience between two completely different eras of political engagement in West Africa. Sowore's generation of activism relies heavily on ideological frameworks. They study the writings of Frantz Fanon, Walter Rodney, Obafemi Awolowo, and Nelson Mandela. They believe in structured political education, town hall meetings, and the systematic articulation of alternative governance models. However, in modern Nigeria, where the public education system has suffered decades of neglect and the daily struggle for survival leaves little time for deep political theory, pure ideology can sometimes create an accessibility gap. The average young person hustling for daily bread in a Lagos market or trying to survive economic hardship in an urban center may find long, multi-point manifestos detached from their immediate reality. This is where Very Dark Man's model completely changes the game. Very Dark Man does not lecture his audience with macroeconomics or constitutional jurisprudence. Instead, he takes a singular, visceral example of injustice: a crooked influencer scamming poor followers, an elite figure abusing an ordinary citizen, or a clear case of state hypocrisy, and breaks it down with raw, emotional clarity. He converts complex structural corruption into a highly digestible narrative of right versus wrong. By utilizing platforms like TikTok, Instagram, his content is explicitly prioritized by distribution algorithms that reward high retention, emotional reactions, and rapid sharing. A 40-page political manifesto might reach a few thousand academic elites. A 90 seconds Very Dark Man video, shot in front of a plain background, will penetrate every major market and commuter bus across the Federation before sunset. When these two forces combine, a uniquely powerful political tool is created. Sowore's structural legacy and ideology, plus Very Dark Man's algorithmic reach and youth appeal, equals a highly potent, unified resistance framework. Sowore provides the movement with historical depth, legal infrastructure, and a lifetime of unyielding resistance experience. Very Dark Man provides the explosive, immediate distribution engine that ensures the youth stay highly engaged and emotionally invested in the outcome of the struggle. The state is no longer just fighting an isolated political dissident in a courtroom. They are competing for attention against the most powerful digital influencers in the country. It is a critical mistake to view the clash between Sowore, Very Dark Man, and the DSS as a purely domestic Nigerian affair. This is the undisputed economic, cultural, and demographic anchor of the West African sub-region. What happens to the state of human rights and judicial independence within its borders sends immediate ripple across the entire continent and deeply affects its international standing. Nigeria's international partners, including the United States Department, the European Union Parliament, and major global financial institutions like the World Bank and IMF, closely monitor high-profile political trials. These entities view the treatment of figures like Sowore as a primary indicator of a country's sovereign risk profile. When a government regularly deploys its internal security agencies to violate court orders, invade judicial chambers, or systematically harass media publishers through endless litigation, it signals to the world that the rule of law is non-existent. For global investors, a country without a reliable, independent judiciary is an impossible place to do business. If the state can arbitrarily seize an activist, it can easily seize corporate assets or invalidate commercial contracts without consequence. The continuous persecution of political activists directly contributes to the capital flight, the refusal of foreign direct investment, and the subsequent devaluation of the national currency. This confrontation occurs against a highly volatile regional backdrop. Over the past several years, the West African region, ECOWAS, has been rocked by a succession of military coups, constitutional manipulation by sitting presidents, and the systemic dismantling of democratic norms in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Guinea. As the traditional democratic anchor of the region, Nigeria is expected to set a standard of institutional maturity. If the Nigerian state uses its intelligence apparatus to crush peaceful political expression and turn standard bail hearings into exercises in intimidation, it loses all moral authority to lecture its neighbors on democratic stability. Every extrajudicial move made by the DSS weakens Nigeria's diplomatic leverage within ECOWAS, rendering the nation less effective at managing regional security crises. To understand why thousands of citizens packed the environment of the court following VDM's video broadcast, one must pull back the curtain on the technical realities of how the legal system can be manipulated behind the scenes by political forces. A bail hearing is not just an objective assessment of a defendant's flight risk. It is a complex theater of psychological and administrative warfare. This sequence is intentionally designed to exhaust the public. The state calculates that while citizens may show up in large numbers on day 1, their daily economic obligations will prevent them from returning on day 15, day 30, or day 45. Eventually, the crowd thins out. The media trucks drive away, and the state can quietly secure highly restrictive terms against the defendant in an empty room. When a judge is under intense political pressure but cannot outright deny bail due to a total lack of evidence, they often opt for a compromise tactics, granting bail but attaching prohibitive, near impossible conditions. These conditions are a quiet form of detention, finding high-ranking civil servants willing to risk their entire careers, pension, and personal properties to sign a bond for a targeted state enemy like Sowore is a massive challenge. Furthermore, by adding clauses that ban the activists from speaking to the media or traveling outside, these conditions are a quiet form of detention, finding high-ranking civil servants willing to risk their entire careers, pensions, and personal properties to sign a bond for a targeted state enemy like Sowore is a massive challenge. Furthermore, by adding clauses that ban the activists from speaking to the media or traveling outside a specific city, the state effectively places them under house arrest, neutralizing their ability to work, campaign, or communicate with their global support base. As creators, commentators, and citizens look at the unfolding narrative of Omoleye Sowore's ongoing legal battles and Very Dark Man's viral call to arms, a powerful, inescapable conclusion emerges about the changing landscape of modern political power. The era of centralized, top-down political control is dead. The state can monitor traditional newsrooms, control radio licenses, and deploy physical security personnel to close public parks and stadiums, but they cannot stop a decentralized network of millions of citizens who carry a television studio, an investigative printing machine, and a political organizing center inside the front pocket of their jeans. When an intelligence agency realizes that an extrajudicial arrest or a manipulated judicial ruling will not occur in the dark, they will instead be instantly analyzed, criticized, and broadcast to tens of millions of passionate, highly connected young people. The calculus changes completely. The risk of public backlash, international embarrassment, and economic disruption outweighs the political benefits of crushing a single dissident. Very Dark Man's call for peaceful support at Sowore's bail hearing is a major milestone. It serves as a real-time proof of concept for a deeply disciplined, non-violent, and highly strategic approach to modern West African activism. It proves that the ultimate defense of liberty does not require stones, weapons, or riots. It requires an unyielding, orderly physical presence, backed by an unstoppable digital megaphone that refuses to be silenced. If this video have been informative and educative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.